This video is sponsored by Audible. For a free audiobook, use the link in the description below. Welcome back to the series where I'm tier ranking all 256 Twinborn types from Brandon Sanderson's Mistborn series. Only one of the Twinborn names from this week's video come from the Mistborn adventure game rulebook. The rest were created by me and other users in the Exploring the Cosmere Discord server. It's a lot of fun to brainstorm on names for these types, so if you're interested in helping out on that, make sure you join the Discord. I'll link that in the description below. Last week, we didn't have any Twinborn types make it into the busted tier, so will we get some busted Twinborn types in this part? Let's find out. The first Twinborn type we have for this video is Dragonfly. Dragonflies can use their allomantic aluminum to wipe the internal allomantic reserves of themselves, and they can use their ferrochemical steel to store physical speed. Okay, so as I talk about in every video, Twinborn types that have aluminum or duralumin for their allomantic ability are basically glorified fairings, because their allomancy is almost useless. In the case of aluminum allomancy, they could at least get rid of investiture that's being used upon them from other people. So if they're fighting a Knight's Radiant, for instance, and they're lashed, they could probably burn their aluminum and get rid of that lashing. So it has a little bit of use, but not enough for me to rank it any higher than D tier. Next up, we have Assessor. Assessors can use their allomantic Bendalloy to speed up time in a bubble around themselves, and they can use their ferrochemical copper to store memories. This is the one name that comes from the Mistborn adventure game rulebook. The reputation of Assessors is that they can break down events second by second. I think that reputation is pretty accurate. I think this is actually a really good combo because the Assessor can throw up their speed bubble around themselves, and from their perspective, everything outside of that bubble is going to look like it's going in slow motion. And they can use their ferrochemical copper to store the memory of each event that they see taking place outside of their speed bubble. I could see Assessors being really good, maybe like detectives or researchers, I guess even. If they have to research high-speed events like explosions or maybe like car crashes, they could throw up their speed bubble and view everything outside of that bubble in slow motion. If they see a fight break out, once again, they could throw up their speed bubble and watch the fight take place basically second by second. I don't think the powers are necessarily good for combat uses. I'm going to put them in A tier. They're both pretty good powers. Okay, next up we have Impulse. Impulse Twinborn can use their allomantic bronze to hear allomantic pulses, and they can use their ferrochemical chromium to store fortune. These powers don't really work together, in my opinion. When you're actively storing your fortune in your chromium mine, you're going to be a little less lucky than you normally would, depending on how much of your fortune you're storing at once. And then whenever you're tapping that fortune at a later time, you're going to be more lucky. You're going to have more things happening that benefit you, but I don't see how that would affect your ability to hear allomantic pulses necessarily. I'm going to put Impulse in B tier for now. I might change it as I go forward. Next up, we have Wraith. Wraiths can use their allomantic chromium to wipe the allomantic reserves of a target, and they can use their ferrochemical duralumin to store connection. So to use their chromium, they have to actually go up and touch another allomancer. When they burn their chromium, if that other allomancer has any allomantic reserves within themselves, those reserves will vanish. And ferrochemical duralumin is a really good ferrochemical ability. You can store your connection and be less noticeable by others. And then when you're actively tapping that connection at a later time, you're going to be very charismatic. People are going to want to be around you. They're going to like you. So yeah, it could be used in a variety of ways. It could have espionage uses, for instance, going unnoticed, slipping into buildings, and then tapping that connection when you need to get information out of somebody, make them more willing to talk to you, and make them trust you more. Yeah, I think that this could be a very good combo, actually. So if the Wraith is actively storing their connection, they could walk up to an allomancer without that allomancer even noticing that they're there, probably, and then they could leech that allomancer's reserves by burning their chromium. And the opposite is also true. If they're tapping their connection, they could make that allomancer want to befriend them, want to be around them, and then they could just all of a sudden leech that other allomancer and kind of break their trust. So it would probably be best to use it while you're actively storing your connection. But yeah, I think that this is a good combo. I'm gonna put this in S tier. Oh, and I forgot to mention, you can also use allomantic chromium to wipe other types of investiture, not just allomantic reserves. So for instance, if you were dealing with a Knight's Radiant and they had a bunch of Stormlight, you could leech that Stormlight. The next type is Payload. Payloads can use their Allomantic Nigrosyl to enhance the Allomantic burn of a target, and they can use their Ferrochemical Iron to store physical weight. Okay, so Allomantic Nigrosyl is pretty good because you can be a good support to a team of Allomancers. You just lay your hand on another Allomancer, and if that other Allomancer is burning a metal while you burn your Nigrosyl, that metal that they're burning will be enhanced. It will basically burn the whole reserve at once and kind of supercharge that power. You can also use Allomantic Nigrosyl offensively. Imagine an enemy Allomancer burning tin, and you sneak up on them, touch them, and burn your Nigrosyl. All of that tin that they're burning will be used in an instant, and their senses will be overloaded. And then Ferrochemical Iron can be very good if you're actively storing your weight while falling from a height. You're gonna slow your fall because your mass will go down, but your surface area remains the same. So wind resistance will slow you down so much that you can land safely from basically any height. And then you can, at a later time, tap that weight and become much heavier. I don't think that these two powers really enhance one another. It's gonna have to go in B tier for me. Next up, we have Nihilist. Nihilists can use their Allomantic Chromium to wipe the Allomantic reserves of a target, and they can use their Ferrochemical Electrum to store Determination. Ferrochemical Electrum is one of my least favorite ferrochemical abilities. When you're actively storing your Determination, you're gonna be in a depressed state. You're gonna be apathetic, not wanna do anything. It would just be a pretty miserable experience overall. Of course, you don't have to store all of your Determination at once, so you could just store a little bit of it, but either way, you're gonna be in a more depressed state. You can later tap that Determination to go into a manic state. You're gonna feel on top of the world. You're gonna feel like you can do anything, accomplish anything. You're probably gonna be more focused. It's one of those ferrochemical abilities where the storing would be very annoying and detrimental. So yeah, it's only good one way. Yeah, these two powers just don't combine in a meaningful way that I can see. I'm gonna put this in C tier. Next up, we have Survivalist. Survivalist can use their Allomantic Copper to hide Allomantic pulses, and they can use their Ferrochemical Bendalloy to store energy. Now this is a pretty good combo. So with Allomantic Bendalloy, you can just eat as much food as you want and store all of those calories that you get from that food into a Bendalloy mind. While you're actively storing, you're never gonna get full. So you can just be like an anime character and stuff your face. That sounds really fun. And then at a later time, you can tap that Bendalloy mind and go for a long time without needing to eat because you're just getting all of the energy from the calories stored in your Bendalloy mind. You can do the same thing with water. You just have to use a separate Bendalloy mind. Yeah, and then Allomantic Copper, of course, when you're actively burning your copper, it's gonna hide any Allomantic pulses. That could be really good if you're on a team of Allomancers. You could hide everybody's pulses around you. It also makes you immune to emotional allomancy, or at least very resistant to it. It's actually possible for a Seeker to detect ferrochemical pulses. The Inquisitors in Era 1 actually used their Allomantic Bronze to find all of the terrorist Seekers from the Synod because they could detect their ferrochemy. So yeah, Allomantic Copper would also hide your ferrochemical use. So yeah, a Survivalist would be pretty great if you just need to hide from Allomancers and never want to be found by an Allomancer. You could do exactly that. You could even go off into the forest, for instance, and just survive off of your Bendalloy mines, constantly burn your copper. Yeah, Survivalists would also probably be good on a team of Allomancers because they could go for long periods without needing to take food or water breaks, and they could just constantly be around the team burning their copper. Survivalist is pretty good. I don't think it's busted. I don't even think it's S tier. It's gonna go in B tier for me. Next up, we have Heatwave. Heatwaves can use their Allomantic Bronze to hear Allomantic pulses, and they can use their Ferrochemical Brass to store warmth. Okay, these powers aren't a great combo, but I think it could be useful. I mean, if you're seeking out an Allomancer and you're following them through various environments, maybe, you would be fine doing so because you could use your Ferrochemical Brass to stay as warm or as cool as you need to. You're chasing this Allomancer through a desert, you just constantly store your body warmth in your brass mind. And if you are following them through an Arctic tundra environment, you can just tap your warmth from your brass mind and not feel the cold. In that case, I think that it would be a good combo. Other than that, I really don't see how they would work together to benefit the Heatwave. So yeah, I think Heatwave is gonna go... It also has to go in B tier for me. Then we have Tardigrade. Tardigrades can use their Elementic Duralumin to enhance current metal burned, and they can use their Ferrochemical Gold to store health. Tardigrades are another example of a glorified fairing. They can't really use their duralumin to do anything because they can't burn any other elementic metals. So Tardigrade is gonna go right in D tier. Next up, we have Diviner. Diviners can use their Allomantic Electrum to reveal their future, and they can use their Ferrochemical Gold to store health. So when you allomantically burn Electrum, you have these shadows that come out from your center of self, and it shows the different potential paths you could take. It was used in Book 3 of Era 1 to help fight against people burning Atium. I don't think that allomantically burning Electrum is that useful in any other circumstance, really. And then Ferrochemical Gold, of course, is a really good ability to have. It wouldn't be fun to store your health because you're going to be feeling under the weather. You're going to feel like you have a cold. And if you're storing a lot of health at once, you might have to be bedridden. Wayne in Era 2 talked about that. He talked about needing to spend like 2 weeks sick in bed to be able to store up enough health to heal from a bullet wound. I'm putting Diviner in C tier. Next up, we have Reverie. Reveries can use their Allomantic Gold to reveal their past self, and they can use their Ferrochemical Brass to store warmth. Allomantic Gold is an ability that doesn't seem very useful. Maybe we'll learn more about it in future eras of Mistborn, but for now, it basically just shows you an alternate version of what you could have been if you made different choices in your past. But we haven't really seen it be used in an effective way yet. And I don't think that Ferrochemical Brass is a good pairing for Allomantic Gold. They don't build on each other, so this is going in C tier for me, at the very bottom of C tier. Next up, we have Flashbang. Flashbangs can use their Allomantic Nigrosil to enhance the allomantic burn of a target, and they can use their Ferrochemical Steel to store senses. Okay, I think a Flashbang could be a pretty good member on a team of Allomancers. They could constantly be boosting the allomantic burn of their teammates, and they could also use their Ferrochemical Tin to tap their eyesight and their hearing and other senses and be hyper aware of what's going on in the battle around them. And of course, they could use their Ferrochemical Tin to just be a scout. They could go off on their own and then come and report back to the team. Other than supporting other Allomancers, I don't really see this power being great. I mean, they can use their Allomantic Nigrosil offensively, I suppose. I don't think that their Ferrochemical Tin would really help them sneak up on another Allomancer, though. They're going in B tier for me. There's a lot of B tier, but I guess that's to be expected. It's kind of the middle of the road. I imagine at the end of this whole 256 type tier list, it's going to be in the shape of like a bell curve. All right, next we have Patriot. Patriots can use their Allomantic Pewter to increase their physical strength, and they can use their Ferrochemical Aluminum to store identity. We don't know too much about Ferrochemical Aluminum yet. It just hasn't been used much, even by the Terrace people. We do know that it's one of the components that you need to create unsealed and unkeyed metal mines, but you also need other ferrochemical powers for that. Yeah, I don't think that Ferrochemical Aluminum would be very good on its own. I speculated before that you might be able to store all of your identity and then tap other people's metal mines. That's based on a part of Bands of Mourning. I talked about it in other parts of this series, so I won't dive back into it. By the way, if you haven't seen the other parts in this series, I'll link the playlist for all the parts in the description of this video. Definitely check those out. Yeah, in concept, Patriot is cool, and the name is cool, but it's gonna have to go C tier for me. Next up, we have Muffler. Mufflers can use their Allomantic Copper to hide Allomantic Pulses, and they can use their Ferrochemical Tin to store senses. I think this would be a good support type, once again, on a team of Allomancers. They could hide the Allomantic Pulses of their teammates, and of course, they could hide their use of Ferrochemy. They'd also be immune to emotional Allomancy, and that's always a plus. They'd actually be a pretty good scout. As long as they're burning their copper, they're gonna hide their use of Ferrochemy. So when they're enhancing their eyesight or their hearing, they won't be able to be detected. They could probably sneak pretty deep into enemy lines if they needed to, and they would go unnoticed. I think this is gonna go in A tier for me. Next up, we have Bloodshot. Bloodshots can use their allomantic steel to push metals, and they can use their ferrochemical gold to store health. This is a pretty good combo. The most obvious use for these two powers would be for combat uses, right? I mean, this is basically a mix of Wax and Wane from Era 2. Allomantic steel lets you push projectiles rapidly at enemies, and ferrochemical gold lets you heal any wounds you sustain. It's super common for people with allomantic steel to push on bits of metal like coins or bullet casings and push themselves up into the air and continually do that and kind of fly. And I think ferrochemical gold would make that way less risky. Even if you run out of metal and you fall to the ground and break bones, you could just tap your ferrochemical gold and hopefully you have enough health stored up that you could just instantly heal from those injuries. I think Bloodshot is gonna have to go at the very top of S tier for me. I can't put it in Busted because that's reserved for truly OP combinations. The last type for this video is Gourmand. Gourmands can use their allomantic zinc to riot the emotions of others, and they can use their ferrochemical Bendalloy to store energy. Allomantic zinc is always a good power to have. You can choose an emotion of another person and you can enhance that emotion. If you want to make them extremely angry and more susceptible to making mistakes, you can do that. You could also target other emotions and enhance them to make the person more trusting. It's an ability that would let you manipulate people in various ways and have them do what you want them to. And then of course, ferrochemical Bendalloy would let you go for very long times without needing to eat or drink. It would also let you eat and drink as much as you want without getting fat. So that's always a benefit. These powers don't really build on each other, so I'm putting this in B tier. Once again, we have a whole video with no Twinborn types making it into the Busted tier. That's not too surprising though, considering we've only had 5 Twinborn types make it to the Busted tier out of all 7 parts so far. Here's the combined tier list of all 7 parts so far. It's getting extremely full. These videos are posted weekly, and we still have over 100 different Twinborn types to rank, so make sure you hit that subscribe button. Before you go, let me tell you how you can get a free audiobook thanks to the sponsor of this video, Audible. All you have to do is use the link in the description and sign up for a Premium Plus 30-day free trial, and you'll get an Audible credit. You can use this credit to get any audiobook of your choice. Audible will give you another credit each month that you're a member. I've been using Audible since 2017 and have almost 4 months of listening time, which is pretty crazy to think about. It's a great product and I highly recommend it. Plus, the book is yours to keep even if you cancel your membership, so there's really no downside to giving it a try. Get your free audiobook today by using the link in the description. Also, thank you to all the patrons and channel members. You make this content possible. See you in the next video.